Okay, so get this. You sent in some research on animal evolution, right?
Right.
And the concept of the palimpsest,
Yeah.
I have to admit, not a word I hear every day.
Yeah.
But after looking through this material,
Yeah.
it seems like we're about to uncover some really cool secrets hidden within animals themselves.
Absolutely.
It's going to be like
Yeah.
piecing together a puzzle.
Yeah. The idea of a palimpsest, that faint trace of older writing beneath the new really captures how evolution works.
Yeah.
And you've given us some great material to dive into.
Yeah.
Excerpts from a book on this very topic.
Cool.
It's remarkable how much we can learn about an animal's history just by examining its anatomy and even its genes.
So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
Pretty basic biology, but all life started in the ocean, right?
Right.
I mean, we all know that.
Yep.
But what's really wild is that every animal, even those of us walking around on land today, still carry traces of that watery origin within us.
That's right. And one of the most compelling examples of that is the composition of our blood plasma.
Okay.
Did you know that it's chemically very similar to diluted Paleozoic seas?
Hold on. Are you saying our blood is basically
Right.
ancient seawater?
Not exactly seawater as we know it today.
Okay.
But it's fascinating to think that something as essential as our blood reflects our ancient connection to the oceans.
Wow.
The renowned biologist J.B.S. Haldane was the one who pointed this out.
Right.
And it really highlights how evolution leaves its mark even at the most fundamental level.
So we've got this picture of early life swimming around in the ocean.
Right.
But then at some point, a few brave creatures decided to venture out onto land. What drove that move?
Yeah.
And what were some of the hurdles they had to overcome?
The transition to land was a monumental shift.
Yep.
One of the most significant challenges was adapting to breathing air instead of water.
Oh, yeah?
Imagine the changes needed in their respiratory systems.
Wow.
It's a mind-boggling process.
I bet that wasn't an easy adjustment.
Hardly.
Did they just, cough up some lungs and figure it out overnight?
Evolution is a gradual process, and it often builds upon what's already there. There's this concept called the Baldwin effect, which describes how learned behaviors can actually become genetically ingrained over time.
So you're saying that something an animal learns can actually become part of its DNA?
It's a bit complicated, but essentially, if a particular learned behavior increases an animal's chance of survival and reproduction, the genetic predisposition for that behavior becomes more common in the population over generations.
Okay.
It's as if the behavior, which initially requires effort and learning, becomes more and more automatic over time.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it.
Okay.
Do you have a good example of this?
Think about those early lobe-finned fishes that started leaving the water maybe around the Devonian period, about 400 million years ago. Paleontologist A.S. Romer proposed a theory that recurring droughts forced these fishes to crawl between shrinking pools of water.
Oh, wow.
Those that were better at navigating on land
Yeah.
had a better chance of finding new water sources and surviving.
Yeah, that makes sense. So over time, those that were better at crawling would pass on those traits.
Exactly.
And eventually you'd have fish that were more adapted to life on land.
And as generations pass, this ability to move on land, which may have started as a learned behavior, could become increasingly encoded in their genes. Those genes would then give their offspring a head start, so to speak.
Yeah.
Making them better suited to life on land right from the start.
So we've got these animals adapting to life on land.
Right.
But then some of them decide to go back to the water. Whales, sea cows, sea snakes, turtles.
Yeah.
They all return to their watery origins.
Yeah.
It seems like a strange U-turn, doesn't it?
It does seem counterintuitive.
Yeah, they went through all that trouble to adapt to land.
Yeah.
And then they just went back.
It highlights that evolution isn't a linear progression.
Right.
It's more like a branching tree with creatures adapting to whatever niche provides the best opportunity for survival.
But here's what I don't get. If they're going back to the water, why didn't they just re-evolve gills?
Yeah.
Seems like that would make life a whole lot easier.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
You would think re-evolving gills would be the way to go.
Yeah.
But the answer lies in the complexities of embryological development.
Oh.
It turns out that sticking with lungs, even while returning to an aquatic environment, was less drastic from a developmental standpoint than trying to re-evolve gills from scratch.
So they were stuck with lungs and had to work around them.
Right.
What kind of adaptations did they come up with?
Take whales, for example.
Okay.
They developed incredibly efficient air exchange mechanisms. They can take in a huge amount of oxygen with each breath and hold it for a long time, allowing them to stay submerged for extended periods.
Yeah.
Sea snakes developed a specialized blood supply in their heads that allows them to absorb oxygen directly from the water.
Really?
All of these adaptations are impressive in their own right, but they're built upon their existing lung-based systems. It's like evolution took what was already there and modified it to fit the new environment.
And let's not forget about size. Some of these aquatic returnees got huge E.
Absolutely.
Blue whales are the largest animals to have ever lived on Earth, right?
That's right.
Amazing.
The blue whales are absolutely massive.
Yeah.
And there was also the stellar sea cow, which went extinct in the 18th century.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a sea cow larger than a mink whale.
Wow.
It's hard to wrap your head around how enormous these creatures were.
Yeah.
But they demonstrate how evolution can lead to incredible diversity in size and shape.
And then you have sea turtles.
Yeah.
They breathe air, but lay their eggs on land.
Right.
They're amazing swimmers, but notoriously clumsy on land. It's almost like they're caught between two worlds.
Their story is a perfect example of how evolution can produce these fascinating blends of traits. They're incredibly graceful in the water, but almost comically awkward on land.
Yeah.
And those tiny baby turtles hatching on the beach and making a mad dash for the sea while dodging predators. Talk about a perilous journey.
Oh, man.
But it's a testament to the enduring connection between these marine creatures and their terrestrial past.
Yeah.
They're a living embodiment of that back and forth journey between land and water.
Speaking of journeys, I'm really intrigued by what you said about tortoises. You call them the ultimate palimpsest champions.
Yeah.
What makes their evolutionary journey so unique?
Tortoises have taken this back and forth between land and water to a whole new level.
Okay.
Their lineage shows a dizzying series of reversals, starting with their ancient fish ancestors who crawled out of the sea.
Right.
Some of their descendants went back to the water, like the ancestors of whales and sea turtles.
Yeah.
But then, in a twist unique to tortoises, some of those aquatic turtles returned to land, becoming the land tortoises we see today. And there's even evidence suggesting that some tortoise lineages might have gone back to the water a third time.
Wait, so they went from land to water, back to land, and possibly back to water again.
It really is a remarkable story.
That's just mind-boggling.
It's like piecing together a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah.
Scientists use a combination of fossil evidence, anatomical comparisons, and increasingly molecular genetics to trace these lineages.
So it's like a high-tech detective story where they use DNA to solve an ancient mystery.
That's a great analogy. By analyzing the genes of living and extinct species, we can get a clearer picture of how they're related and how they evolved over time.
You know, it's amazing how scientists can even figure out where an animal lived millions of years ago just by looking at their bones.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Scientists can analyze the proportions of bones, like those in the forelimbs, to determine whether an animal was better suited for life on land or in water.
Okay.
They've looked at the bones of dozens of living turtles and tortoises, both aquatic and terrestrial, and found that they can accurately predict their habitat just by analyzing those proportions. And when they apply this method to fossils of ancient tortoises like those from the Triassic period, they found strong evidence that these creatures lived on land.
So even without seeing them in action, scientists can deduce their lifestyles from their bones.
That's right.
That's incredible.
It is.
You also mentioned this fascinating fossil called Odontochelys, a turtle with teeth.
Odontochelys is a real gem of a find.
Wow, what's the story there?
It lived in the Triassic period. Even earlier than those Triassic tortoises we were just talking about. It had teeth.
Wow.
Which modern turtles lack. And get this, it only had a half shell.
What?
It had the bottom shell, the plastron, but no top shell.
Oh, wow.
Its ribs were flattened, though, which suggests they were starting to evolve towards that shell structure we see in modern turtles.
So it was like a turtle in the making.
Right.
Why do scientists think it only had a half shell?
One theory is that it evolved as protection from predators, particularly sharks, which often attack from below.
Right.
That bottom shell would have provided some defense against those attacks.
So it was like a shield against those underwater ambushes.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in the fossil record just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely. With each new discovery, we uncover another layer of the palimpsest, another clue to this incredible evolutionary journey. And the more we learn, the more we realize how much more there is to discover. Yeah. It's remarkable how these echoes of past adaptations, these ancient scripts, can sometimes act as constraints on evolution.
Oh, like limitations.
Yeah, imagine trying to build a house on a foundation that wasn't really designed for it.
Oh, I like that.
You see?
So you're saying these old adaptations are like a foundation.
Right.
And they can sometimes limit what evolution can build on top of them.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder if there are any design flaws hidden within our own bodies, right?
And a classic example of this is the vertebrate retina.
Okay.
Believe it or not, it's installed backward.
What?
The light-sensitive cells actually face away from the incoming light.
Wait, our retinas are wired backward?
It's true.
How? I mean, if evolution is all about efficiency, how come we ended up with such a seemingly backward design?
Well, it all comes down to evolutionary history.
Okay.
This backward arrangement is a legacy from our very distant ancestors. To change it now would require a radical rewiring of the eye's development.
Oh, wow.
And those intermediate stages would likely be detrimental to survival.
Oh.
It's like trying to renovate a house while still living in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just easier to work with what you've got.
So it's a trade-off.
Right.
Even though it might not be the most efficient design, it works well enough.
Right.
And the cost of rewiring the system completely would be too high.
Precisely.
Wow.
And we see these evolutionary leftovers, these quirks from our past, all over the animal kingdom.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Take the human tailbone, for example.
Okay.
It's a remnant of a tail that our ancestors once had.
Oh, right.
Or consider our body hair, which was once much thicker and provided insulation.
Right.
Now is mostly just a faint reminder of our furry past.
It's like our bodies are walking museums filled with these exhibits of our evolutionary history.
That's a great way to put it.
You know, one of the things that really stood out to me in the research you sent was this thing called the recurrent laryngeal nerve.
Yeah.
It sounds like a real head-scratcher from a design perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what's going on there?
The path of the recurrent laryngeal nerve is a perfect example of how evolution, while effective, doesn't always produce the most elegant solutions.
Interesting.
It's a nerve that connects the brain to the larynx, which is responsible for our voice in our fishy ancestors.
Okay.
The nerve took a direct route to its target.
Makes sense.
But as our ancestors evolved necks, and the distance between the brain and the larynx increased, this nerve got caught on the wrong side of a major artery.
So instead of rerouting the nerve, it just got longer and longer as our necks evolved.
Exactly. It's a ridiculously long and convoluted path.
Wow.
I actually saw it firsthand during the dissection of a giraffe for a documentary.
Oh, wow.
This nerd had to travel all the way down the giraffe's long neck.
Oh, my God.
Loop around an artery in the chest, and then back up the neck to reach the larynx.
Talk about taking the scenic route.
Right.
It seems like there would be a more efficient way to wire things up.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But this seemingly absurd arrangement is a testament to the constraints imposed by evolutionary history. We're not perfectly engineered machines. We're products of a long and messy evolutionary process, and our bodies bear the marks of that journey.
So these older adaptations can sometimes limit what's possible. But what about newer adaptations?
Yeah.
Do they always win out?
It's not quite a simple battle between old and new.
Okay.
The pressures that shaped our recent ancestors are often still relevant today.
Right.
So those newer adaptations might have a slight edge.
Okay.
But it's more like a complex tapestry with adaptations from different eras all interacting and influencing each other.
That makes sense. It's not like evolution just wipes the slate clean with each new adaptation.
Right.
Speaking of old adaptations, you mentioned dead genes earlier.
Yeah.
I have to admit, that caught my attention. What are these dead genes all about?
Yes. Pseudogenes.
Pseudogenes.
These are genes that were once functional, but have become deactivated over time.
Deactivated how?
It's like a graveyard of genes within our genome. They're still there, but they're no longer actively producing proteins or influencing our traits.
So they're like those old files on your computer that you never use but can't quite bring yourself to delete.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They're like relics of our evolutionary past, providing us with clues about the environments and lifestyles of our ancestors.
So like what kind of clues?
Well, one fascinating example of pseudogenes relates to our sense of smell.
Really? Our sense of smell?
That's right.
How so?
We actually possess many smell genes that are never activated.
So they're just sitting there doing nothing.
They're like deleted files on a computer,
right.
Still present, but not being used.
It makes you wonder what the world would be like if we could perceive a wider range of sense, doesn't it?
It really does.
Think of how much more vibrant and nuanced our experiences would be.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're missing out on a whole dimension of sensory input.
And it's not just about appreciating the aromas of a fine wine or a freshly baked loaf of bread.
Right.
A keener sense of smell could have provided significant advantages for our ancestors, like detecting predators or finding food sources.
So these pseudogenes are more than just genetic curiosities.
That's right.
They're like windows into our evolutionary past,
exactly,
telling us stories about the adaptations that were once crucial for our survival. And they also make you wonder what potential might still be locked away within our DNA.
Absolutely. And as we delve deeper into the world of genetics, we're likely to uncover even more fascinating insights from these genetic ghosts.
It's like a whole graveyard in there.
It really is.
You know, as we're talking about all this, it makes me think about those who believe in creationism. How do they reconcile these dead genes with their worldview?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
From an evolutionary perspective, pseudogenes make perfect sense.
Right.
They're remnants of adaptations that were once beneficial but are no longer needed in our current environment.
Yeah.
But it's harder to explain why a creator would design our genome with all these unused genes, wouldn't you say?
It does seem like a bit of a design flaw, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like building a car with a bunch of extra parts that don't do anything.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense from an engineering perspective.
Exactly. But from an evolutionary perspective, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
It highlights that evolution isn't about perfection or predetermined plans.
Yeah.
It's about tinkering and adapting to whatever challenges the environment throws at you.
So you're saying that our genome is a reflection of this long and messy evolutionary process.
Precisely.
Complete with all its twists, turns, and dead ends.
And with the advent of molecular genetics, we've gained an even more powerful tool for deciphering these ancient scripts.
I read that molecular genetics has led to some pretty surprising discoveries about animal relationships.
Right.
Like the unexpected connection between whales and hippos, right?
That's right. For a long time, scientists classified whales as mammals, but their precise evolutionary origins remained a bit of a mystery.
Okay.
Then along came molecular genetics, which provided a bombshell revelation.
What's that?
Whales are closely related to hippos.
Wait, hippos?
Yeah.
Those big lumbering creatures are the closest relatives to those sleek, streamlined whales.
It's true.
That's hard to believe.
It does seem counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah.
But the genetic evidence is undeniable.
Wow.
In fact, hippos are more closely related to whales than they are to pigs.
No way.
It was a discovery that really shook up our understanding of evolutionary relationships.
So by studying the genes of these animals, we can see these connections that would be completely invisible just by looking at their outward appearance.
That's right.
It's like discovering a hidden family photo album in our DNA.
That's a great way to think about it.
Wow.
And with each new genetic analysis, we're adding more pictures to that album, revealing these unexpected connections and filling in the gaps in our understanding of how life on Earth evolved.
It's amazing to think that our DNA holds all these clues to the past.
It is.
We've been talking about these deep layers of the palimpsest, these echoes of ancient worlds hidden within animals.
Right.
But what about the more recent chapters, the adaptations that have emerged more recently in evolutionary history?
Right.
What can those tell us?
Well, that's where the incredible power of natural selection really comes into focus.
Okay.
By studying more recent adaptations, we can see how evolution has shaped animals to thrive in their specific environments. And it's especially fascinating when those environments undergo dramatic changes.
Oh, wow. So like climate change.
That's one example. It's like watching evolution in action, coming up with creative solutions to new challenges.
So even though those older adaptations can sometimes be a bit of a drag, evolution can still innovate and create these amazing new features.
Exactly.
It's like evolution is constantly tinkering, trying to find the best solutions for survival.
And one of the ways we can see this tinkering in action is by looking for convergent evolution?
Convergent evolution.
This is where unrelated animals, often living in similar environments, evolve similar traits in response to similar pressures.
So you're saying that even though these animals might be from completely different branches of the evolutionary tree, they can end up looking or behaving in similar ways because they're facing similar challenges.
That's right.
It's like evolution has a limited toolkit, but it can still create incredible diversity.
A classic example of this is the streamlined body shape of dolphins and sharks.
Oh, yeah.
One is a mammal, the other a fish.
Yeah.
Yet they both evolved these sleek, hydrodynamic forms for efficient movement through water.
Yeah.
They converged on a similar body plan because it was the most effective solution for their shared environment.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the environment sets the challenge. And evolution figures out the best way to meet that challenge.
Right.
Regardless of the animal's ancestry.
Exactly.
So we can see these patterns in nature
Yes.
where evolution keeps coming up with similar solutions. It's like it's trying to tell us something.
And another way we can try to understand these evolutionary solutions is through something called reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering. I've heard of that.
This involves looking at a particular trait and trying to understand how it evolved by studying its structure and function.
So it's like taking something apart to see how it works.
Exactly.
But instead of a machine, we're looking at an animal trait.
Right.
Reverse engineering, huh?
Yeah.
So it's like being an evolutionary detective trying to piece together the steps that led to the development of a particular trait.
Exactly.
That would be a fascinating process.
We might examine something like the wing of a bird.
Right.
Or the echolocation system of a bat, and try to figure out the sequence of adaptations that led to those incredible futures.
Wow.
By understanding how these traits evolved, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the ingenuity of the evolutionary process.
And it's not just about understanding the past. Right?
Right.
I read that studying these adaptations can also inspire new technologies and designs.
You're exactly right.
Really?
There's a whole field called biomimicry. Which focuses on designing things based on nature's solutions.
Wow.
By looking at how nature has solved problems, we can gain inspiration for new inventions and technologies.
So like what? What are some examples?
Whether it's designing more efficient wind turbines based on the shape of whale fins, or creating new materials inspired by the structure of spider silk. Nature provides an incredible library of designs just waiting to be discovered.
So it's like we're not just looking at animals.
Right.
We're looking at potential blueprints for the future.
Exactly.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities.
It really is, and it all comes back to this idea of the palimpsest.
Yeah.
Animals are like living history books, carrying the stories of their ancestors within their very being.
Right.
But they're also blueprints for the future, offering insights into how we might solve problems and design a more sustainable world.
So we've gone on this incredible journey.
We have.
From ancient oceans to the cutting edge of biomimicry.
It's been quite a ride.
We've explored how the past shapes the present. And how the present can inspire the future.
Yeah.
What does it all mean?
Well,
I guess it means that we're not just looking at animals.
Right.
We're looking at living history books.
Yes.
Incredible blueprints for innovation. And maybe even a reflection of ourselves.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Every animal, even you, carries echoes of ancient worlds and long-gone ancestors within its very being.
It's a reminder that we're all part of this grand evolutionary narrative.
Yeah.
This incredible story of life on Earth.
That's right.
It's pretty humbling, wouldn't you say? And it makes you wonder
It does.
what traces of the past might be hidden within us, just waiting to be discovered.